Today I'm going to show you how to use the airbrush to paint some gross alien skin. Yo dog, Kenny Bichet here, Next Level Painting, hitting you up on the literal best of all days on this glorious Friday in the Beats Lab in Hollywood, California, hitting you up with yet again another tutorial. We're coming back to the Damashron. Today we're going to focus on painting the alien gross skin around the stomach of the Damashron. The Damashron is the bug that eats bugs, or peoples. So it's like his whole abdomen is a big stomach, so we're going to work some gross alien, but kind of like, why is that kind of a human skin tone on a exoskeleton bug? Creepy color in there. This is going to be another example of how to use the airbrush to combo off the paintbrush and to use it as a tool. All day, every day, that's how we do it here in the Beats Lab. We use everything we have and we make it work. Before we go much further, I want to talk about the new network. The Long War Network is finally here. It is our live network on Twitch. Spiky Bits TV finally joined the ranks. And we now have an official stream team, The Long War. Slow Fuse Gaming, myself, and Spiky Bits TV, and more to come. Check us out on Facebook. We have a new Facebook group called The Long War Network. I want to shout out a couple of clutch individuals, some of my patrons over on patreon.com. Jackson, my man Tom, Bill, Caleb, Lucas, Cachote, my man Eric, Paul, Jim, Ferenc, the Card Game Guys, Chris, my man Mikey, Mountain Jack, Alex, David, Adam, Jean, Daniel, Kyle, and of course, Lena. Thanks you guys. Can't do it without you. Patreon is my personal crowdfunding page. It is how I keep the lights on. I don't do it for money, but it takes money to do this. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. A little bit of a sneak peek. Going into January, obviously, Q1 2017, we're going to have a lot of stuff happening at the Long War Network on Twitch. We're going to be doing a lot of new stuff. I'm going to be pushing a new set of t-shirts. They're going to be coming to pre-order in January, and I've got some other secrets that I haven't even talked about that I'm going to break on Twitch. Also, with the holidays coming up, I don't know when you're seeing this video, but here's the simple truth. Taking the last 2 weeks of December off, gonna be on vacation, gonna be down in Florida, visiting my parents who are newly retired. And of course, I'm gonna go to Orlando, maybe kick it at Harry Potter Land with my lady. I don't know, but that is gonna be the holiday schedule going in to the end of 2016. Big shout out to all you guys. I don't know how many more videos are gonna be off the heels of thelongwar.net here before 2017. Speaking of which, check out thelongwar.net. It is the home of the battle reports and the fastest growing library and video content related to wargaming. Let's do it. Let's do this thing, guys. We're back to the Damashron. Now, this is one of my favorite Tyranid monstrous creatures. Very dynamic, but we're going to go old school right out the gate. Secret Weapon Acrylics Hold Rust. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite sets of paints. They're known for their muted weathering tones, but I find ways to sneak them in every project I do. So this Old Rust is kind of just a burgundy or a maroon. You know, obviously it's all about the context in which you use it. If you applied it to a vehicle as rust, it would look real rusty. But here, I'm trying to create an undertone to a disgusting flesh area in this stomach. His like mouth, stomach, chest. You know, his I eat people for breakfast chest. So this is a technique I like to use. I broke this on the Gore Chosen, where we use this as a base coat to any kind of flesh. We're not going to take it to like super fleshy human, but I want it to be disturbingly human on this stomach. Like it's almost like he's wearing his stomach on the outside is the way I'm envisioning it, and that's what I want to do here. So this is a very difficult model to paint with a lot of weird areas. I am going super thin, almost like water. I mean, look how, I'm just going so gangster, but it's a very thin coat. I'm going to do 2 or 3 thin coats over this large model with my paintbrush, with my base brush here. We're going to let them dry in between, come back on, reestablish, keep going. This is one of those tricks to using your airbrush and your paintbrush as a team, as tools to getting the job done. Any model that is large especially is going to have its own challenges with paint buildup, with getting thick. Those are the things you want to avoid at all costs, because that's what kind of makes your large vehicles, your large monsters just not look good. Now, we do have a little bit of advantage here because this is a very organic model. But when you're doing the airbrush like we are, we're trying to be as clean and surgical as possible. So there, so far, it's pretty solid. It already looks good because it's contrast. That's automatically what makes it look good in this situation. So we're gonna go with this flesh tone that I love. It's a P3 formula, like Cardic Flesh. And we're gonna just water it down, and we're gonna just do almost like a little glaze over this rust brown. Since it's so thin, you can't forget, paint is transparent, no matter how thick you put it on. So it will always mute down a little bit. So that's a big secret. I keep saying it, you want to thin your paints out, do multiple thin coats, but that's only if you want it to look smooth and you don't want it to look good. It's on you. And you see it's already muting out as it dries. And I'm doing a somewhat of a wet blend here because I didn't let the rust brown totally dry. But I'm coming on so thin, so watered down with this flesh tone. It's kind of reactivating, and it's kind of a ghetto wet blend. But you see a lot of the vibrancy of this flesh tone mutes away as soon as that thin coat of paint dries. And it's going to dry pretty quick. Acrylics are known for that. And you see we're already getting a very interesting flesh tone here. I mean, it's definitely creepy. Literally good contrast, good good blends, nice shade, nice highlight, and we're going to keep building the highlight up as we go. Same protocol we just did on the old rust. Multiple thin coats. Let's brighten it up and keep going. You can see though, it's very challenging with all this crazy interior detail though. Look at all this bullshit. And for the most part, I'm going to take it. I'm creating shortcuts for myself. I'm not going to paint all the flaps of skin different colors, all the tendrils different colors. We're going to basically stick with this as our predominant color. And then once we get it all figured out, all sorted out by the end of this video, I'll come back in and decide what details are going to be yet a different color to keep carrying that contrast through, because I like to carry hyper contrast through in all my models. So I wanted this to be, bright enough that you can see, but still a little, darker than the yellow. It's basically my goal here for the predominant chest stomach. Same deal, a lot of that chest stomach, if you look at it, it kind of wraps around into his head. It's weird. And I imagine that's just gross, alien shit, man. I don't fucking know. And so I decided I'm going to hit all this in here, a quick wet blend. We'll keep doing the same stuff we're doing on the rest of the stomach here, because we're going to put his head in, and you're not going to see most of that, but I want it to be a cool little detail when you look around, in his head region. So here we go. Here's another pass with that same flesh tone. It's all dry to let it all dry. Another very thin coat. Where, like I said, there's no prejudice here. I'm painting. This is the color I've chosen to be the predominant, chest stomach color. We'll come in and do the, other contrast later, but don't get bogged down on hyper focusing on like, oh, should it be this color or this? Literally paint it all as if it's gonna be this color. It save you so much time and so much headache. And this is still another very thin coat. It looks very bright, but it is gonna mute down again. That's just the name of the game. And we are using a it's almost water. And that lets you get away with a lot when you're coming on this thin. You really can move super fast. You don't have to overthink it. And since it's so thin, it applies so thin because it's so watered down. You just know it's not gonna look shitty. Even if you fuck up, you can repair it without building up too much paint. And here's a big gross area. All the, bullshit under his carapace, all that gross, ligaments and shit. That's definitely a fun area to paint. Same deal, got to flip him over, get on the inside again, get all the stomach bullshit painted out. And as you can see, it's just moving quick, man. Quick, fast strokes, lots of paint loaded up on the bristles because it's so thin. That's kind of the secret here. Keep it thin. And this model is huge. So you got to use every trick at your disposal in order to keep this guy looking his best. It's super easy to just have a real nasty build up on a certain little trouble sections of a big vehicle or big monster like this. So we're feeling pretty good about that. You can see it muted down. We're coming in there, grabbing a couple of last spots that we didn't hit in that first pass, letting it totally seal up. And then we're going to start making decisions on how bright we really want this to go. How contrasty do we want it to be? I have a rule of thumb. Always take it to 11 before you take it back down to 10 with a wash. And obviously something like this is disgusting. Stomach chest is very washable. Look at all the little natural details in there, all the little carvings and cuts in the bone structure and the ligaments and the flaps of skin. This was meant to be washed. So of course we got to take it to 11. Building it up over here, literally it's time consuming. You know, this took hours because it's just so much surface area, so much detail. You got to make sure you get it all. You got to make sure you wipe out the previous color in its entirety. Yeah, again, you know, here this is the tail end of another coat, light coat of this flesh tone, and it looks good. I mean, with the undershade of the old rust built up on this, it's very natural and I love it. But now we're about to go crazy. We're going to rapid fire some gangster tech right here. We're going to use that squid pink, mix it back in with that flesh. It's still 90% flesh though. It's only a little bit of that pink. And what we're doing here is we're going to smooth out some of the peaks and some of the bulbs, like the knobs and the ends of these bones. We're just going to come in there, smooth it out, make sure we got a nice, clean, smooth slate. And we're establishing the subtle transition toward, and you guessed it, toward a more pink. So that way you get this natural, you know, maroon skin to a darker skin tone, and then we're going to bring it to these pinks and just kind of make it very, very, you know, disturbingly out of place. I don't know, that's kind of like my vision for it. So now we've added a little bit more pink into the pot, and we're going to double down on these highlights. We're going to sneak them right in. We're coming in real thin. We got the PSI at 30. It's probably shooting 22 when you pull the trigger. You're just coming in tight. Play your cards close to the chest on this. You know, just come in tight. And there you go. So now we're getting some really fancy looking airbrushing, comboed off with some wet blend and some layer blend technique. And it's looking good. It's looking totally alien and totally nasty. I mean, look at that stupid stomach. It's almost like he's got a secondary face built into his stomach. And you don't even see, like I said, I left the head off so we can do all this detail without his head in the way. But look at that chest. It's just, yeah, this is the most vile, nightmarish creature I've ever seen. I would literally shit myself if I saw this guy in real life. Feeling good about this, bringing it up. But like I said, we got to take that color transition up one more notch before we bring a wash into play. And so we're going to add a little bit of white into that pink. Raw dog right now. We're going to bring it up. Same protocol, hit the tips, hit the little spikes, hit everything. No rhyme or reason to the highlight. We're not thinking about light at all. We're not scientists. I don't know if I can understand how light works. I just know it looks cool. And usually if I were to assign a light source to one of my models, it would be like 1,000 lights shining on them from 1,000 angles. This is what it is. Snuck in there to his carapace. Getting those knobs painted up, those highlights. And you see now, look how bright it is. It's such a different color than we had before. But we're going to mute it back down because we are going to lay down some wash on this. And I'm going to show you a couple of simple tricks to using your wash, to using your GW wash game here. We got to make sure we get everything just right though. Even with the airbrush, it's going to mute down. When you put on a thin coat like this, it's going to look really bright for about 5 minutes. And then as it dries up, it's going to be super muted compared to what you thought it was. It's kind of the difference between a matte varnish and a gloss varnish. When it looks wet, it's brighter. That's just the phenomenon you're seeing here. So we're looking good. I'm feeling that. You know, I'd be happy to leave it that way, but there's too many details in there to leave alone. You got to wash them. You got to bring them back out. It's just the name of the game. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use a little airbrush thinner, a little bit of gloss varnish. And I'm only using the airbrush thinner here so that it dries faster, because I'm going to use my paintbrush and I'm going to use more of a dabbing technique. I'm going to put some down kind of thick, move it around, dab it into position, switch paintbrush sizes, make sure to push it in everywhere. This is, you got to be careful when you're doing this though. You can't let it get, too thick. You got to keep it moving. And if you're using the airbrush thinner like I am, you got to move quick and you got to predominantly dab so it doesn't pull up any of the paint. And we're going to even, flip it onto the inside. Nice couple light coats. This is very light pressure. We're barely applying any pressure to the surface at all. We're moving quick, but like we're barely moving along the surface, letting the bristles barely touch the model. Moving it into position rapidly. And I got another trick. I'll pull out the airbrush here and I'll spray the gloss with just air to push it around to keep it in motion, to spread it out a little bit more, to keep it from building up in areas that don't want it. We're literally just blowing air through the airbrush. You can even take it into your bathroom, use a hair dryer on it right now to help it dry a little faster, but I would give this a couple solid hours to dry for sure before, best case, honestly, I would leave it overnight. So Raglan Fleshy, this is a gloss wash from GW. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite washes in history. And now we're going to come on and we're going to just thickly we're going to go crazy. And the combination of a gloss varnish and a gloss wash is pretty cool. It flows into all the crevices very fast, leaves most of your surface color intact. So it doesn't do that traditional coffee staining that most washes do. It wicks away so fast and it looks so good. It really gets into all those little details, making it, now like everywhere where the old rust was sitting, this is settling into those old rust areas and helping bring the old rust back out. And it's barely staining any of our pinks and any of our top coats. It's just finding all the grossest angles. And this is going to look real good once you let this dry, hopefully for a couple hours. And then you hit it with a nice matte varnish. And of course, I recommend Testors, Model Masters, Luscious. It's one of the best in the business. Couple of coats of that, and everything will be good. But here it is, looking shiny and gross. Every bit disgusting. Anyway, guys, thanks for checking out this video. Play on, players. If you like these tutorials, check out Next Level Painting on Patreon. Become a patron of the arts today. We offer early and exclusive access to our videos and a rewards program for different pledge levels. Patreon is PayPal and credit card secure, so you don't have to worry about that. We use 100% of the money to improve our process.